So we'll pass now on to Hassan for his diversity and inclusion session. Hassan, over to you.
To be with you, and let me walk you through the agenda. So I'll touch on the aims and objectives of diversity and inclusion, touch on the 4 divisions within that, and I've mentioned BAME in there, so I'm a part of the committee on that. An example of mentoring a manager. Then a large part of the presentation will be the challenges that I had experienced over the last 30 years and how I turned them into opportunities. And after that, I'll leave aside some time for questions, so probably about four minutes. And after that, I'll hand over to Liz Edwards. After the unfortunate murder of George Floyd, I think Johnson & Johnson really took off in terms of their messaging and the need to understand different cultures and equality. This quote you can see here is from the Credo. And if you have read all of the Credo, then you'll agree with me that the Credo was actually way ahead of its time. It was written by Robert Wood Johnson in 1943. So when you see terminologies here like diversity, respect, they were way ahead of their time. Now, as part of the BAME program, and certainly after the murder of George Floyd and Alex's quick comments in public about the need to raise awareness of racism, the BAME committee came up with a really interesting program about mentoring. This is where BAME people like myself would mentor white colleagues who are in management so that they do understand the diversity of cultures, and it helps to promote mutual understanding. So I've had the privilege of mentoring Amy. We converse every 2 weeks. In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow, and we've had some really good conversations. And she's asked me about my background, being Asian, Muslim, and sort of cultural aspects. And I consider this to be a two-way process as well. But for me, I want to understand about Amy and her challenges she's faced as a woman engineer in the workplace, and also what her view is about white privilege and her understanding of it. So we're having some really good conversations. Okay, so for the next 10 minutes or so, I'll walk you through my personal experiences, and there will be instances where you will be taken outside your comfort zone, but don't worry, I'm here to guide you, and I can assure you it's all okay. So let's start off with 1989. Some of you weren't born, but others will remember this incident where Salman Rushdie came up with this book, Satanic Verses, that caused controversy. And on Valentine's Day, he received a Valentine's gift from Iran, where Ayatollah Khomeini issued a death sentence on him. Now, at that time, you can see here, I was at school. Now, understandably, a lot of my friends were teasing me. They said, oh, look, you Muslims are terrorists, you're extremists, and you oppress your women, so on and so forth. Now, there were 2 ways I could react to this. One, I could get reactionary and say, oh, how offensive it is, get offended and how dare you. Or I could find a vehicle in which we could discuss, debate, and clear away any misunderstanding and ignorance. I found that vehicle at school, and it was a speech competition, which is held every year. And my topic was about Muslim women and rights given by Islam. And I've circled this building here because that's where the debate took place. There were concerns that it's a very controversial topic. I'd lose the debate. Luckily, I did win that debate. And one participant made an observation that here is a Muslim in a Christian school, a Quaker Christian school, was given the first prize by a Jewish adjudicator. So there you have it, unity in diversity. Moving on to the early 90s, when I was at university, there was an acquaintance I knew, Ahmed Omar, on the left. Really nice guy, well-educated. And unfortunately, he went to Afghanistan to join the Mujahideen. And then he came back to university. I remember having a conversation with him in the prayer room, which was in the basement of our university. And I could see the change in him. And it gave me an insight into how terrorists use psychology to recruit well-mannered people like him, and he did try to recruit me to join the Mujahideen. Obviously, I knew better. A few years later, unfortunately, he was involved with the tragic murder of Daniel Pearl, the American journalist. So I got an insight into the thinking of terrorists. Come 2001, when the terrorist attacks took place, and I'm sure all of you remember what you were doing when the attacks took place. Again, there was a surge in counterattacks on Muslims as a result of that, and even other communities were affected. So, for example, we have some Sikh gentlemen who do wear the turban and have a long beard, and they were mistaken for Muslims. And unfortunately, one of the Sikh men was killed in Canada. So there was a blowback. Again, what do I do? Do I react and say, how dare you criticize Muslims? Or, we're not all like this. My vehicle at that instant was politics. At that time, I was quite heavily involved. And I chose the platform of the conferences, political conferences, in 2001, so just after the 9/11 attacks, and in 2006, 1 year after the 7/7 bombings. And it was a chance to convey what the difference between Islam, between religion, and trying to get a cohesive message. And I quoted this particular verse at conference, which is my favorite verse in the Quran, which talks about the unity of mankind and understanding each other. After I delivered those speeches, I was invited by the women's group of that political party to talk, and also they asked questions, and that really cleared away misunderstandings. In 2005, I stood for Parliament, and on the right, there was a notorious group called the Al-Muhajirun. Some of you may remember that. They were very active in the early 2000s. Now, they had a mugshot of me and other Muslim candidates who stood for Parliament because they didn't like Muslim standing, or it wasn't allowed, etc. So I did what I do best, which is to challenge. So I did challenge them to a public debate. I invited Sky News. 1 week before the debate was due to take place, they actually backed down. And I know why. Because they have no leg to stand on. To try and link Islam or the Quran with terrorism, they would lose badly. And as I'm showing you these examples, you see at the bottom, I have this motto here: challenge equals opportunities. As finding opportunities where I can counteract the works of these extremists. Fast forward to 2009, some of you may remember Nick Griffin on BBC Question Time. There was controversy, but I supported the BBC on that because there's a chance to expose, or for their views to be exposed, and have the opportunity to question Nick Griffin on a Question Time. Again, using the opportunity to challenge. 2017, if that wasn't enough, there was another terrorist attack in London Bridge. And again, you can see the sense of concern that the general population would have had about terrorism, about Muslims generally. Again, another opportunity on radio when Katie Hopkins was a presenter. And we had a really, really good conversation. At that moment in time, I think for those 7 minutes, she had a very positive view about Muslims and Islam, which is very counter to what she had been espousing. Unfortunately, a few months after that, she was kicked out of that radio station. And what happens normally is when you shut down debate, those views go underground and they go bonkers. So unfortunately, Katie has followed that route. So you can see my way of dealing with that was through radio. And then I got involved with the government's counterterrorism prevent, which is to prevent people from getting into radicalization. Some of the psychiatrists, my customers, they knew my involvement in that, and they invited me to speak. So with the permission of the previous managing director, Martin, I did speak at one of the academic meetings and also a team meeting, sharing my experiences and clearing any misunderstandings about Islam and terrorism. And I think some of that helped the psychiatrist on how they're going to manage their extremist patients who might be Muslims. Again, if that wasn't enough, another terrorist attack, but this time white supremacy attack, the New Zealand mosque, 2019. One thing I forgot to say was with the Prevent, there's been a lot of controversy about whether it's attacking Muslims or spying on Muslims. What not many people know is that a third of the referrals to Prevent are actually white supremacy extremists. So one such case was Brendan Tarrant when he shot Muslims, and I did see the full video. It was horrific. Yes, I've been on radio to condemn. So what else can I do? What other opportunity is there? So I created a 3-hour video responding to every single argument brought by that white supremacist, and also arguments raised by the non-violent white activists who are concerned about this so-called deluge of immigration of Muslim into Christian Europe. So I dealt with that. That video, well, it reached 500,000 people around the world, and I did get the chance to have a dialogue with one person on the far right. So that was that. And then this year, again, after the tragic death of George Floyd, a protest that had taken place, and when Alex Gorski, he went public and really condemned and said we should be allies of Black Lives Matter. Completely agree. Everyone should be allies of Black Lives Matter. I then decided to email him to share my experience very recently. In fact, it was last year when there were examples of Muslim women being targeted with acid attacks. And one instance when my wife thought that she saw someone carrying some acid, I immediately bought bottles of water and distributed some of the bottles in her car, and also crates of water in the boot of her car. And at that time, my daughter was 1 year old last year, 8 years old last year. And I trained her on what to do in the event her mother, my wife, was attacked with acid. For me, this was a new normal, but when I heard Alex talk about the need for white men to listen more and really respect the diverse experiences, I shared that particular story, and it was really nice of him. He did write a very supportive email back, so really, really appreciate that. So you can see, as I sort of led you on a journey from 1989, how I dealt with challenges that took place, so challenges from Muslim terrorism, from white supremacy, extremism. I didn't mention the Asian grooming gangs, I don't have time. And also what I'm seeing now are extremists from the left, I'd say, in America. And I do feel for the Black Lives Matter movement, because they are going through what we Muslims have been going through in the last 20 years, where you only have a handful of people that do really daft things, destroying buildings, destroying lives, and then the whole communities are affected. So how do I deal with that? Yes, I've been on radio to support Black Lives, but condemn the violence that's taking place. I've done a video, but in a few weeks' time, I'll be coming out with a book which captures some of my dialogue I've been having with people on the radical left. So dialogue, debate, and as I said, the thread, turning challenges into opportunity. So to pull this together, before I go into Q&A, I'm linking this with the theme of the cycle meeting. So are you ready to meet challenges? Absolutely. Well, I've seen the personal challenges, how I changed them. And this also is relevant to our business. We are facing challenges in our business. Are we ready to meet them? Yes, we are. And never, ever give up. Always seek opportunities. Connecting with people with divergent opinions, that's been my way, so that we can all grow and understand each other and unite. Now, before I go into Q&A, I'll give you 2.5 minutes of inspiration. So sit back, relax, and I'll be with you after this.
Where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
Right. Okay. So, welcome back, and I think we only have about 3 or 4 minutes before. It is your opportunity to ask questions, and don't feel shy.
No questions in chat, so if anybody wants to come off mute.
Hassan, ask a very quick question.
Of course you can.
Yeah, you've obviously, it's an amazing story, by the way. I never realised that about you. You get to know your colleagues a lot better on these things. You've obviously spent 30 years sort of living and breathing your values and challenging people. And I just wanted to ask you very quickly what you feel about gestures. And I'm thinking of the Black Lives Matter and the kneeling before football matches and all the rest of it. Yet, you know, there's still no black and ethnic minority managers and football club owners and all the rest of it. And I just wondered, in your opinion, are gestures helpful to raise the issue, or do they make little of the issue?
Well, there have been divergent opinions, and thank you very much indeed for your kind words. And a lot of you actually heard these for the first time, because I tend not to mix business with politics. But obviously, in this case, it was the right thing to do. Are they gestures? I don't know. I have mixed opinions on that. I've heard arguments of those who do not agree with this kneeling down, and others who do. In my view, I don't have a problem with kneeling down, because it is commemorating George Floyd's tragic murder, and the need to make sure that racial injustice is prevented, it ends. So I don't have a problem with that. But you're absolutely right in terms of the diversity in the top management. That isn't there, and I know that Alex Gorski, and also through the diversity inclusion program, that is being looked at and that is being rectified. And when Alex went straight out to say what he did about racial injustice and this diversity and this, mentoring managers, etc., there will be a change. There will be more diversity, certainly within the top management.
Mm-hmm. Hassan, there's a question that's coming from Anne as well, who asks, do you find lately that people are being more careful and even more thoughtful on what and how they say things since the latest awareness of the BME and Black Lives Matter?
I think people are more aware, and that's been one positive thing, I think, unfortunately, after the death of George Floyd, which is there is more awareness of diversity, diverse cultures. And when Alex Gorski, I keep on coming to him because he was very inspirational in the way he handled it. And he said he was really shocked when he heard about his black colleague, who is in top management, experiencing something different, which he never, thought of. So people are becoming aware, certainly in the white communities. I would say that people should not be, you shouldn't feel shy. If you have a question you want to ask, then by all means do. I took part in a BAME conference a few weeks ago, and one white colleague, he was too afraid to ask a question, so he messaged me privately and we had a private conversation. So I would say, whatever questions you have, it is a safe environment. Feel free to ask, because it's only by asking and dialoguing we can clear away any misunderstandings.